Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part two of the real estate cold calling outbound agent. So, in this part two, we're going to go over the post request of what happens when a call is made and how to analyze that call through a different workflow. If you haven't watched part one, I'll link it somewhere up here. Go ahead and watch that, where we talk about how to actually create the call in the first place, and then come back here when you're caught up. So let's get into this, right? We have our post request right here. Make sure I'm recording. Okay. So we have our post request right here, and it looks a little intimidating, but I promise you it's not as bad as it seems. Once you understand how it works, it's not too bad. It makes sense. So let's get some example data in here so we can walk through these steps real quick. So let me go here to this webhook, listen for a test event, and then just run this workflow real quick to get the call. We'll just keep her on the line.
I'm an assistant with Atlanta Realtors. Am I speaking with Smorin?
Yes.
Great. We're working with buyers looking for homes in your area. Have you thought about selling? Or are you curious about what
Yeah,
your home is
sure.
worth?
Sure.
That's awesome. Can you tell me a bit about your home? How many bedrooms and bathrooms does it have?
Like 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. Something
That's
like
fantastic.
that. All right, let's hang up. And now we should get some very nice data. Boom. Let's go. So you notice how the webhook waits until the call is finished before outputting the data. That is because in the last video, we set the JSON right here to have only the end of call report. That's why it's important. Let me stop this so it doesn't keep making calls. Delete this data too. And let's walk through what's going on here. So we have a webhook. We have our test URL. It's already placed in the pre-request. As per the last video, it's a post request. This path should all be filled in. And then we have a wait node. I just like adding this in here. Just gives it 10 seconds in case it needs some time to get the post request. Sometimes post requests can take some time to come. So just wait 10 seconds for the call to process and all that. You don't really need it, but I just like adding it in there. And the wait is now done. And next we have our HTTP request. So this is what actually gets the call. So we have create a call. If we go here, we also have get a call. Vappy. And same sort of situation here, but it's much less. The only thing you have to worry about here is the ID. There's a bunch of other stuff that you could get into, but it's not really important. So we have our HTTP api.vappy.ai/call/the ID. Now for the ID, we come here. Just gonna go to schema here. It's much easier to look at. Let's go and find it. All right, my bad. It took me a minute to find that, but all the way down here, if you scroll all the way to the bottom where all the good stuff is, you can see right here we have our call and our call ID. So just take that and drag it over. JSON.body.message.call ID will appear, and here below we have authorization, the value for authorization, which I've removed from my privacy, but just write bearer space and then paste your authorizations, the same key that we used in the previous video for the start call. And then nothing else really matters. You don't need a body here because it's a get request. So after that, let me paste this back in. So after that, we run this, and then here we get nice post call request with all the information we could ever want. So most important is a transcript, right? That's what we're going to be analyzing to fill in these values onto our Airtable accordingly, right? So for right now, the tables that I have is interested in selling. We have yes, current home, yes, another home, or no. And then summary of the call, bedrooms, bathrooms, rough square footage, special features, timeline to sell, and then reason to sell. Now you can add all the columns you want and then adjust the prompt to ask for all these informations depending on your client, depending on what they want, what you want to show off, your product. It's all up to you, but this is what I have for right now. So have the summary. Summary is right here. Drop that in there. Transcript, boom, drop that in there. Recording URL. I actually don't use it here, but you can always add a column and just import that recording URL too. And the call length. This is important to analyze a call. So what I look at right here is the call cost. Let's see if I can find this now. Right here. So we have the call costs. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to come down. You're going to come down to costs right here. It's right below the cost breakdown, and just find cost 3, right? This will give you. It's actually meant to analyze the cost of the call and what fraction of the cost comes from the VAPI minutes. But we don't care about the cost right now. I mean, obviously, if you want to use a cost, go ahead. Throw that into a variable if you want to. But what I care about is minutes right here. And this is the overall length of the call. So you can take this value, pull it into here, right? And you'll get this value like this. And it comes in minutes, but I multiply it by 60 because this is technically, because we want it in seconds, because minutes is like weird to deal with when it's a short call. So I just multiply that value by 60. If you can't find this, literally just copy what I have here and it'll work. And then you have here 32.55 seconds. That's how long that call was. And this is going to be important later on. And then we have our ID, again, from the JSON, the customer.name. Remember the last video, we imported it through the name value. And this is also important down the line. So let's go here. Very nice. Now we have our first roadblock. And you'll see this whole mess right here. Yeah, it looks messy, but what is it really doing? It's just analyzing the call and understanding how to update the database accordingly. So in the first one, we have transcript exists. What is this for? This is for if the call was even picked up or not. Because if the call is not picked up, then there's going to be no transcript. But even if the call was picked up for a second, she's going to say, hey, this is Jenny, and it could be hung up, but there's still that, hey, this is Jenny, and that is still a part of the transcript. The transcript will only not exist when the call is not picked up. So we can use that to our advantage. So we can go here, we can set this if statement, right? JSON.transcript right here, just pull that in. If that exists, then keep going. If it doesn't, come to Airtable, and this is all just updated. Columns to match, again, we're pulling in our ID, because the ID value is how we match what row we're on. And just say set fields.item.json.id and set that to not picked, which is the status. Set the status to not picked. Sorry, the ID, this is for the ID itself. This is where you would take the ID and you'd pull it in here. This is what would happen if you pull in the ID variable. And then you click add column to send, click status, and set it to not picked, which is this status right here, not picked. So now when a transcript doesn't exist, we know that a call is not picked, so we can provide value instead of just saying, oh, it was called, it's not called. We can provide more information. We can say that it's not picked so that he knows who to call back, because it doesn't mean that the sale isn't available or the sale potential is not there. It just means that it didn't go through. So if that doesn't happen, and if you're creating something complex like this, just make sure to label everything so it makes things easier. We go into our next hump. Next hump. Was this a good call or was this a bad call? The way I like to analyze it is by looking at the call length. If the call length is above 30 seconds, then I can say it's a good call, because it gets to the point where it's already asked if, hey, are you interested in selling or not? And even if they're not interested in selling, they've talked with this agent long enough where they have provided some sort of valuable information. So I'd say that I'd say it's a good call, right? And you can have a bad call if this JSON.call length, the variable we created before, right, is greater than or equal to 30, that's a good call. And if it's less than 30, it's a bad call. If it's a bad call, we can just say that they hung up, right? Because if call doesn't last more than 30 seconds, they definitely just hung up on the agent. Like there is no real valuable information given, and the flow ends. We don't have to use any tokens to try and analyze a transcript and spend money on a workflow that is not going to provide any value. We can just end the workflow, boop, right here. But if it's a good call, greater than 30 seconds, we go into the next step. Next step is we have a status change where now we finally say the status is called, right? So now we've tackled all statuses here. So it's initially not called. If the transcript doesn't exist, it's not picked. If the transcript exists, but the call is less than 30 seconds, it's hung up. And then finally, if the transcript exists and the call is greater than 30 seconds, then it's called. And it could even be a bad call. It could have no interest, but they have been called. And that transcript is valuable because it is longer than 30 seconds. That value is, again, that threshold is up to you. I just chose 30 seconds. So we change that status. Now it's called. And then we go into our first information extractor variable right here, our node. And we plug in that transcript. Again, it's the same transcript. We're plugging it in. Let me just execute previous nodes here. So we have our transcript right here. Let's take that, pull that in. Interest in selling. So now I have my attributes. So I'm slowly changing from here because now this is a called. So is he interested in selling? I have this is an AI. Now we're finally connecting it to AI. We have an open AI chat model that's connected to. So now we can say, analyze this transcript. This is what I wrote. You're an expert transcript analyzer for a real estate cold calling company. Your job is to take transcripts of calls with users to determine if they have any interest in selling their current home or any other home, right? So I added that feature where you could be interested in selling, does the user have any interest in selling their current home? Return true or false, right? But what if they want to sell another house? Like, I don't really want to sell this house, but I have an investment property that I've owned for some time and I'm looking to sell that, a rental property, right? Then you want to also, account for these kind of situations. And as you have more and more situations and you talk to real estate agents, they're like, I get a lot of calls about this. You can tweak this and add attributes as needed. So I have it as another sale opportunity, a string variable. Does the user have any interest in selling another house? Return true or false. So these both return as true or false, but it returns a true or false statement as a string. I've tried returning it as a Boolean, but it just confuses things a little bit down the line. So just return it as a string. So after we run this, boom, and now we go into our next step. Was the user interested in selling? And if it was interested in selling, their current home is true, or the interest in selling any other home is true, right? So it's basically like, are they interested in selling anything? Are they interested in selling their home right now or another home? If either of those are true, then they're interested in selling something, and that is valuable. So I click this convert types when required. You don't really need to do that. And ignore case again. It doesn't really matter. Just in case the AI spits out a capital letter, it'll take care of it. Fine. So then we see that this is true because on the call I said I was interested in selling. If it's false, it goes down here and then it updates the status. Again, you're using ID to match. It updates the interested in selling status to no. And then that updates right here. And if they're not interested in selling, then it just cuts the flow right there. Again, we're not wasting tokens any more than we need to. But we are interested in selling. So we go here. Now we go to a switch. And you don't really need to make this a switch. You can also make it an if statement, but I just created a fallback just in case it doesn't work. But we have is interest in selling equal to true, or is interested in other opportunity equal to true, or is it some variation of the other? So this is basically saying now it's deciding, is it the current home or is it another home that this person is being interested in? And the reason I have an extra fallback is for some sort of reason, if by some chance the person is like, oh, I'm interested in selling my current house and another house, which is, oh my God, you're like the greatest customer ever. The real estate agent is jumping up and dancing, right? In that case, I'm just going to air it out. I mean, you can create a scenario for this, but it's just like the customer wants to sell both their current home and another home. Really? That doesn't sound right. He's probably messing with us. But in that case, you can always add a tertiary flow for that. But for another home, I have it set to updating that status to yes, another home, the interest in selling status right here. But if it's their current home, which is most likely going to be, then you can just set that to yes, a current home. So we're just like slowly snaking our way through different opportunities and just updating the table accordingly. That's all that's happening here. So click that. We go into sell current home and update that variable. Then we go into our final house info extractor node, right? And the same one, I literally just copied these down here. They do the same thing, except they just fill it out for different situations. One is for selling the current home, one's for selling the other home, and they both update the records accordingly as well. So this comes in here. Again, you're copying a transcript, and then these are all the attributes you fill out. So these are all bedroom, bathroom, rough square footage, special features, all that stuff. Like just filled out here. Bedrooms as a number, and you give a small description of what you're asking for. Special features, any special features or standouts about the home. Timeline to sell, rough square footage, reason to sell, and then you can just do the prompt as a basic prompt, expert extractor, and it always gets it right because the transcript is not too complicated. It's not super long, so it's not too hard to get right. And then you come here and you just you're matching the ID, and you just fill in these values. And you can see that these values you're not going to fill in because I didn't get that far, but the bedrooms and bathrooms filled in. You have a summary of the call. And then that updates the housing records as needed. So, and even if it doesn't give everything, this is from the last call I had, but even if it doesn't give all the information, it still fills in whatever it has, which is great because any information is valuable for a real estate agent, especially cold calling agents too. So that's the whole post request. It's really not that complicated. It looks scary, but it's not that bad. The hard part I'd say is testing it, just because, as you're testing it, you need to keep making calls and keep altering your calls to different ways. So you might use a good amount of VAPI minutes. If you run into a cap on VAPI, you might have to switch to Twilio. Twilio doesn't have a cap per day of how many calls you can make. So in that situation, you can just buy a Twilio phone number and pay by usage. They also have like a free plan for like 15 minutes of usage or $15 of usage. So just keep calling with that if you want to keep testing more than like a couple times a day. And if not, you can just copy this flow. It should work just fine. And that's it for part 2. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope it was informative in some ways. Again, if you want to build something like this for your business, or you have something more complex or a different industry, just hit up my website, optrexai.com, a link in the description for a free 30-minute consultation. And like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. I try to make as many informative videos as I can about different things, and also about AI as an industry and news about what's going on. So if you're interested in that, just stay tuned because there's a lot more coming. Thank you.